What's up, everybody? Welcome to Solana Weekly. This is your host, Thomas, and I want to thank you for joining in. Let's take a dive into the latest trends, use cases, and people behind the incredible growth of the Solana ecosystem. None of this is financial advice, but I'm hoping that all of this is alpha. Now let's get to the show.
We have Josh on. He's coming to us from Solayer, and I'm really excited to hear a lot about restaking, right? It's one of the newer concepts coming to Solana. So I wanted to get to the bottom of it because it even confuses me sometimes. So I'm really excited to learn about restaking and all they're doing at Solayer. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here, and thanks for having me. Before we start, I think I wanted to share a bit more about restaking in general, and especially how Solayer is doing it differently. I guess we start with restaking. Restaking was mostly pioneered on Ethereum with EigenLayer. The concept has been in play for a while, but in different formats, right? So we see this with shared security models on Polkadot, on Cosmos. I think Ethereum took it, EigenLayer took it in more the Ethereum-centric way where there's so many layers of rollups, layer 2s, and things that are being built on top of the L1. And that is where it kind of evolved in that specific way. But restaking is mostly where you have capital and you put that in a way that allows you to restake different assets, right? So if you have ETH that's already validating layer 1, usually it stops there. Then came along something called LSTs, or liquid staking tokens, where you deposit that into the validator, is running its thing, and you get back a receipt token. And
and that is very popular on Solana now. I've been talking about that and how that is basically been a cheat code is to hold your Solana, stake it, have the tokens as well. It's been a fantastic ride in the last year doing that. But this is how that originated on Ethereum. So I'd love, sorry to interrupt you there, but I was getting excited. So keep it going.
All good. And when you have that token, it provides a lot more liquidity, right? There are different kind of use cases that you can use your token for. You can use it in lending, borrowing, different kinds of things. But I think where restaking takes that a bit further is that when you have a certain amount of capital in one spot, right? You can actually use that as collateral or as assets to kind of secure additional proof of stake systems. So the way that restaking is being done is where you have a proof of stake network, and it has its limits because if your proof of stake network is only being secured by, say, 20 million, but you have 100 million of assets on that chain, the validators have a incentive to, I guess, rock the protocol and take all the money, right? Because at most they get slashed, they slash 20 mil, right? They get much more benefit that way. Yeah. So in a sense, that your TVL on that chain is going to be limited. But if you're a new project starting up, you're not going to have 200 million, just securing your validators with proof of stake. So I think that's where EigenLayer really definitely help with this new model of saying, hey, I can take this crypto economic security and I can extend it now. You can validate both your layer 1, but use those assets in a new proof of stake chain. And then there's a whole bunch of mechanisms for people to keep everyone in check so that the incentives all line up and everyone's playing nice, because if they don't play nice, they get slashed. And that's I guess the essence of restaking that has been the dominant part of that for the past year-ish.
I have a question, but before we go too much further on that, so EigenLayer it's doing this, is taking the economic security from the L1 of Ethereum and basically it's unlocking that security for other chains, rollups, L2s. So it's spreading that basically, where we don't necessarily have that on Solana, right? So for the most part, Solana is an L1. It doesn't have like significant other chains that it needs to do this with. What's your guys' approach when it comes to Solana? I imagine you're probably getting to that, but that's kind of where my mind was going with that.
Yeah, this is it's like a perfect lead-in actually. But yeah, I do think that definitely makes a lot of sense, and that was primarily one of our concerns, or one of our I guess the lay of the market, right? When we're looking to kind of get into restaking on Solana, is that each ecosystem or each chain or each L1 would have its own restaking in a different flavor. In the same way how Ethereum has EigenLayer, on Bitcoin you have Babylon. Babylon cannot be the same as Ethereum or EigenLayer, because the structure, the chain, technology is all different. So it has to be structured in a different way. Similarly, we're seeing that, hey, if we're going to do restaking on Solana, it has to be in a different way. We can't just copy paste whatever's working in Ethereum and put that into Solana, because then you might not be doing it in the most efficient or the best way. And the way that Solayer has been seeing it is that exactly what you mentioned, right? The layer 1 is very performant. So you see fewer like rollups, layer 2s that's being spun up for efficiency's sake. We do see some partners that we're working with, like say Sonic, that is looking to its like customizing the execution environment, creating their own hypergrid format. But in most cases, you would see the major opportunity on Solana being on the DApp level. So DApps are all spinning up on the layer 1 itself. And that's where we are looking to have restaking in a very Solana centric and a very Solana kind of focused manner. In which there's actually a primitive on Solana called stake weight quality of service, where the more stake you have, you can actually help to lend, like increase the reliability, lend more transactions on chain. And Solana has had some troubles with congestion issues, especially during peak network activity. There's a lot of spamming on transactions, mainly because like there's the way Solana validators are being structured. You can basically spam specific validators, or previously you could spam different validators, and maybe go through the leader schedule and hit them first, right? And then you make sure that you really land those transactions. But since then, I think Solana did have a couple of major updates, local fee markets being one of them, and also stake weight quality of service. That allows us to basically, like I mentioned, if you have 1% of blocks of all staked, Solana can you secure like more transaction block space for your DApp.
So it's almost like leverage. It's almost like leveraging the security, right? So it's like you don't necessarily need to put up all of that capital in order to secure that amount. Is that right?
Yes. In that sense, very similar in that sense. But now you're not using it to secure like a layer 2 or something like that. You are directly supporting a DApp that's on the layer 1 itself. You're creating like a mini highway for you to accelerate your transactions, so that you make sure that your DApp has reliable transactions, is landing on chain. But now you don't have to essentially run your own validator, and there's a lot of infrastructure costs of making it your entire own setup.
Yeah.
The way Solayer does it is that we pool and we have a shared infrastructure, so that if you're a small DApp, you don't have to bootstrap this entire infrastructure yourself. Of getting in stake and using that to accelerate your transactions. What you can do is that you can leverage our AVS structure, so that we run the validators for you. We run all the transaction acceleration for you. As long as you provide a bit more incentives for users to restake their SOL with you, that will create a pathway for us to accelerate transactions. And of course, if you're a bigger DApp and you have a much bigger budget, you can afford a lot more incentives. And of course, your demand's also probably going to be more. You probably have a lot more transactions that need to land on chain. So it definitely scales with the size of your business and opens up, I guess, lowers the barrier to entry, so that a lot more smaller DApps can get started.
Yeah. And that was actually, was it stake weighted quality of service that was I don't know if it was necessarily a newer addition, but it was kind of a solution to the problem when it was getting spammed too much. I think it was, I don't know, a few months back, that was the problem, was transactions were no longer landing on chain because of the spam, and stake weighted quality of service was the solution to that. So we saw a lot more liquid staking tokens come out, for like Jupiter, they came out, they incentivized it a lot. So in order to land transactions, because there was a period where you couldn't get a transaction through, and it didn't last too long, but there definitely was. So that was the solution to that. So you're doing it at the app level, and then you guys are enabling that for new apps in order to basically work and get transactions through with those apps. Is that right?
Yeah. And not just dApps. Basically anyone that needs to land a transaction on Solana. You could be a trading house. You could be like a MEV bot, or if you can be like one of our partners is Bonk. So
yeah,
they set out an AVS, or if they're looking at things like rollups as a service. Anyone that needs to push transactions through on-chain, we are here for that. And I think one of the interesting things is that this is something that's only possible on Solana, because there is no mechanism where on Ethereum, if you have more stake, I guess, like how would EigenLayer help to push transactions through for Uniswap? There's no pathway for that on Ethereum, but on Solana we have this primitive that's built into the chain, and it kind of evolved out of a period of time back then when people were having congestion issues, people getting spammed out, and that's this really neat thing that now restaking in Solana can take a form that's the most suitable for its own economic landscape, right? But the value is primarily in the dApps. Yeah, so that's I guess something that's interesting, and what again guess makes Solayer a bit more unique in the sense. We will, of course, in the future have the same, like more on the economic security side, but right now it's more on the transaction throughput side of things. So we actually classify two different types of AVSs. One of them being endogenous or endo AVS, and the other one being exo AVS, being exogenous. So endogenous being native to the layer one itself, that's where we're pushing transactions through. And then exogenous, it would be more of like your modular systems, your rollups, layer twos, oracles, bridges, anything that needs a consensus mechanism or like a proof of stake that it needs to kind of secure. That's where the exo can come in. And I think we are seeing a lot more modular action on the Solana blockchain nowadays. People are spinning up layer twos, people are spinning up rollups. And we'll be there to support that as well. But I think we want to tackle the main bulk of the problem first, where can we solve, I guess, the core infrastructure on Solana first. And then we can take that and even have interesting ways that people can chain restaking, where you stake on the Solana validator, you restake that with Solayer with an endo AVS to get transactions through, you get back a receipt token, and you can take that to now secure your exo AVS. So now you can actually chain two different restakings, and that's only possible because your asset now is being used for two different reasons. One for transaction throughput, and the other one for more on your model like economic security. Two different purposes. It's not really, people have been comparing traditional restaking to like mortgage-backed securities where you're wrapping the risk twice. This one I would think is more like oil, or like oil and gas, where you have an asset or you have a material, and then you have different distillates, right? One that's being used to make tar, the other one's using to make something else. That's completely different from stacking the risk in that sense. It's more about you have an asset, can you extend its utility so that it can do 10 different things at the same time while keeping the risk very much flat. So,
yeah. Okay. So there's a lot there, but it sounds awesome. So you're able to, so it's kind of like there's layers to where what you can actually do with your staking tokens, and by staking them, you're helping out the network in different ways. So it's not just like a random DeFi farm or something that you're putting your token in. You're basically directing your stake to specific areas that need it. And then in return for that, are you guys putting like additional yield on top of that for each one? And I don't know how it would work with multiple tokens. So you can take your Solana, stake it, restake it, and then you get a token back, and you can actually restake that one as well. Is that too much, or is that right? Am I following?
That is about there. I think that's fairly accurate in that sense. So your first set, your first utility that your Sol gets is that you're staking it with a validator, and we have beefed out our validator. I think it's like one of the top, either the first or the second top in terms of efficiency and performance right now on Solana. Mm-hmm. And we beefed that one out a lot for specific reasons. And then we also running a Jido client, so we're getting MEV boost on top of that. So at the very base level, you're already getting a really good return by staking actively onto the Solana blockchain.
And especially lately, because with all like the use and the MEV and Jido tips and everything, a lot of these are pushing well above 10%. I think a couple of them are like at 13, 15% just before restaking anything, right? So that's just like the first layer of staking right there is already really high, right?
Yep, exactly. And you're benefiting directly from the layer one itself. And then comes when you restake your native Solana, you get back Solayer Sol or as Sol. And then you can take that and delegate that to an app of your choice, whether you want to support that app or whether that app is offering like good incentives. So each of the dApps you would delegate, what we call delegate to its that endo AVS, and then you get back an AVS token, and that's being pegged 1-to-1 with as Sol. So it's a receipt token. And it just helps us with accounting for how much you have basically deposited into each of these Endo AVS. And then that would basically accelerate those transactions. So these companies that basically benefit from the accelerated transactions, because it's very much how much the user wants to push your way. It's not, you can't enforce that. So what they have to do is that they offer up incentives to attract users to deposit more. So that would actually add on to is basically additional yield on top of your basic Solana, validated rewards. And then once you get back that AVS token, when you go back and redeem or want to claim your rewards, you can do it from our side as well. And then once you get back that AVS token, once we do launch our EXO AVS, you can take that receipt token and add that into the whole list of economic security, right? You can add in for LSTs, you can throw in your AVS tokens, and that would be a separate source of rewards, mainly because now you're helping to secure a layer 2 or a rollup that needs that economic security. And then that layer 2 or rollup would basically provide another set of incentives to attract stake their way, or like capital, like or crypto economic security in that sense. So with basically 2 actions, you're delegating to two different it might even be the same company if they need both transaction acceleration as well as the economic security, right? But you can delegate to, say, one of our AVS partners, could be Sonic, BigGet, or any of our current ones on our website. You get back that AVS token, and then you go and put that into a different company to secure a different L2, right? And then that could give you multiple sources at the same time. That's primarily how we're thinking about it. And of course, there'll be different partners and different ecosystem players that would essentially wrap everything and have different rebalancing or leverage strategies on top of it that basically abstract all of this micromanaging and all of this like delegations for you so that they can basically run an LRT and maximize your yield for you. So that's something that would be fairly interesting, I feel, as people kind of take a very orchestrated approach to its scaling Solana. And it's also very flexible because it goes where the capital or where the market values specific things.
Yeah. So, okay. So in my mind, when you're saying that, it's almost like a pool that they can use when they need it. So when one of these different protocols would need it, they would likely pay more yield. So it's, if they're willing to pay more yield, that's where the pool is going to direct the funds. So it's almost like it reminds me kind of like what Lulo does to like make it really easy, right? Like Lulo, you stake your stablecoin there, and whatever protocol has the best yield in the hour, they redirect your stablecoins to that particular pool. So whether it's Camino or whatever else it is, it's going to direct it to that, which solves the problem for the protocol and gives you the best yield as the user, right? So it would be kind of similar to that, except it's not just for yield. This is for providing either transactions or economic security, right?
Yep. And I guess the only caveat is that we don't do it for you. The user has to choose. Yep. You have to do it yourself. Or you let an LRT do it for you. Depending on like your risk appetite and how much I guess you want to micromanage it yourself. And funny that you brought up stablecoins as well, mainly because Solayer, we just launched our stablecoin.
Yeah, which is something I definitely wanted to bring up because it's a stablecoin with like a yield, an internal yield to it, right? So I definitely wanted to get into that because I was looking at it, and I mean, first of all, it's cool. I think it's really awesome. I love tokens like that. Like to be able to bring yield on chain is amazing, right? So I love the idea behind it. And then I was also looking at it just now, and it's not necessarily 1-to-1 with the dollar, right? So the yield goes into the value of the token. And so the value of the token will go up against the dollar because of the yield. Is that right?
So there are actually a lot of moving parts when it comes to our stablecoin. Yes, of course.
That was my simplistic view of it. That was my best guess. And I'm sure that a lot more went into it, right?
But you're not wrong. So you're not wrong in the sense that this token, it's interest bearing, right? And so Solayer USD or SUSD is actually the first interest bearing stablecoin that's backed by Treasury bill yield. So it's very much real. You can rely on that. That yield is being brought on chain. And you hold the SUSD tokens, and you are basically accruing off that interest. And yes, on the side that the value itself on chain is accruing value. So it's going to be like 1.0 or something, right? 0.8 or whatnot.
Yeah.
But we also did, we became one of the major driving forces trying to kind of get the Solana ecosystem to adopt the token 2022 interest-bearing token extension. So the token 2022 extensions was a big push by the Solana Foundation earlier, where there are like different kinds of things that you can do with the tokens, right?
Yeah,
and
a
one
lot
of
of
them,
which a lot of really cool use cases. I feel like the one that always comes to my mind is Burnsy. It's or burn, so it's like bonk earn, and every time you sell it, it sells a percentage, or it burns a percentage of itself, or maybe it burns a little bit of bonk every time you sell it. So it's like ways that you can program within the actual SPL, right?
yes, exactly. So in this case, for us, we didn't do the burning one. What we did was that we used the interest-bearing token extension, where you can update your rate, like a percentage rate on the token itself, and you can calculate your UI value based on that rate and how much tokens that you have. So it does some math behind the scenes to make sure that you can get a UI value or a UI amount out of it. And the way we configured our stablecoin for SUSD is that it is increasing in value on chain, but if you take the UI amount, it's always going to be pegged to 1. So
Oh, it
when you
is.
are
Oh, so when you say UI amount, so that's like if I type in like swap 1-to-1, it will always be 1, or like what is that consent?
So it depends on which provider or like which platform you're using to access it. So if you go over to Phantom, if you check Phantom, that's actually back calculated to be 1-to-1. So
Oh,
you might be holding 6,900 SUSD, and on your Phantom wallet, it's going to show 7.4K. And then you can send $500 to your friend, and you don't have to do your mental math of like, okay, let me divide this and send it the right amount. Right? Just type in 500, you should be sending the right amount to your friend. I think that that's something that will be very helpful for user experience, because we abstract all of the crazy stuff away. But at the same time, it makes it a lot more manageable to kind of run the stablecoin, because I don't have to update like 100 million token accounts and say, let me update this on a regular basis, right?
yeah.
This is probably something that is fairly interesting, and a lot of our partners also made the push to integrate in the Token 2022 extension. Yeah, big shout out to Orca. I think Orca did a lot of work to change their program and stuff to take in the Token 2022 stuff.
They're awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's great. And it's what I like about like a yield bearing stablecoin like this is there's no smart contract risk at all, right? Like you completely control your keys. You don't have to send it anywhere. You can just hold it and you can get interest as if it. I mean, it's like it's a better product than owning the actual like securities, if you ask me, or the treasury assets, if you ask me, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a lot more liquid in that sense. And one interesting thing, because we're back to restaking, right? But so the restaking protocol, we did launch our SUSD in the sense to restake USD.
Oh, did
So
you?
you are taking your US dollars or like your USDC and you restake that, you get yield with your real world asset yield. But you can actually take SUSD as part of the collateral set for EigenLayer. So one of the things that we see is that, hey, when you have, say, 500,000 ETH, right, or something like that in your AVS, your economic security or that value is going to fluctuate with the price of ETH. So that also introduces a bit of risk and volatility to what you would want your crypto economic securities to be a lot more stable in a sense.
Yeah.
So having SUSD would definitely be helpful for users or for DApps as well, or like for anyone who's trying to get economic security to have that buffer. I can always rely on X amount of USDC or SUSD backing this collateral set. And at the same time, for the users that you can restake your idle stablecoins to first of all earn your T-bill yield. And then you can extend that utility as well and secure XO AVSs. So you're not just putting your USDC in there and you're only earning that from your economic security, right? now you're earning different things, and your stablecoins are not going to be left idle over there. So yeah, that's some of the interesting things that SUSD introduces. Also, I guess a lot more viewable kind of use cases that you can use stablecoins for. But yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So it's like you got to solve for restaking on Sol and liquid staking tokens and all of that. And it's like, all right, we can actually do this for dollars too. That's a pretty cool idea. That sounds good. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to bring up, I used to listen to Bankless. I kind of slowed down listening to it, but they were really big. They were hyping up. It's restaking summer. We're going to be restaking everything. Like, how did that turn out for them? Like, was that the case? Like, is everybody restaking their tokens on ETH, or is that like is that a pretty popular thing to be done in the ETH world? I guess I should know more, but I hadn't heard any more other than it's the hype before it, I guess.
Sorry. So to catch the question, is like how much people are restaking on ETH, or
Yeah, or is that extremely popular in ETH right now? Like because
yeah,
it is. Yeah.
yeah. I think EigenLayer kind of led the charge on that, and they scaled. I think right now they're sitting on like 14 billion in TVL. And
Oh,
they just kind of came out of nowhere, collected a lot of TVL, and started to secure a lot of ecosystems. So actually a lot of the new chains that we hear about in the news, or a lot of the new kind of AI co-processors and things like that, are actually being run with EigenLayer under the hood, securing them. So that's actually something that's pretty popular on Ethereum.
is it? Wow. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. But one thing when you talk about ETH staking, the rates are a lot lower than they are on Solana, right? Even like the base, because the issuance of Solana is a little bit higher. You can get, what is it, 7.25% for just native staking, like before Jito tips, where I want to say ETH was closer to like 4.2%, but I'm not exactly even sure about that. So
Yeah, definitely. I think Solana yield is higher as well. So definitely true on that side of things.
Oh, that sounds good. So man, restaking. So as far as it goes, like, what is like, are there incredibly high rates for restaking? Like, and if so, I feel like I use like all liquid staking tokens. So I've just got, a bunch of like Jupe Sol and Jito Sol sitting in my wallets. I feel like I should be staking them now. Is it, I mean, is it just a matter of going to your site and restaking, picking, a protocol that I want to go to and just sending the coins there? Is that how much it like, what's the user, like, what would it take for me to actually get into doing that?
It's actually fairly simple. You can go over to a website. There are two boxes. You can restake your USDC, or you can restake your native Sol.
Uh-huh.
And then from there you can, you just deposit in your Sol. You'd be getting it's not the best yield for the validated yield. It fluctuates, of course, over time. But if you also have LSTs, so if you have Jupe Sol, Jito Sol, M Sol, stuff like that, you can also actually deposit that with us. So there's a
Okay.
whole list of like LSTs that you can also deposit into Solayer, and then you would basically have that run, and then you get back a receipt token as well. So all of this can be used as like all sorts of LSTs can be used as collateral for XO ABS. So that's the interesting thing that we do also. But the bulk of our TVL definitely comes from the native Solana restaking and SUSD.
Is it? Okay. Okay. Oh, sounds good. All right. It seems like I need to get into this. It sounds like a great option. I feel like the best part too is, like who you're restaking it with, these DApps, they're essentially giving you the yield rather than having to stake millions of dollars in Solana themselves to get the same outcome, right? Like they're paying, I don't necessarily know what the yields would be, but they're paying, 3-5% in order to get that additional stake from you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And definitely like I mentioned, we optimize the hardware and everything on the server to give like the best, we have the best server equipment that money can buy to make this super fast. And I guess on the extended side of things, it really much depends on which AVS you deposit into, and then your APY would basically change based on who you delegate to.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, with where you guys are at now, like what are you focusing on? Like where do you kind of see this going in the next, few months here in the long-term future? Like what are you guys going towards? Because it sounds like everything's up and running and it's working. You can restake. It's beneficial for users. It's beneficial for people that are building in the space. Like where's that going?
Yeah, I think moving on next would be we'll be launching our EXO AVS. So we can actually take that and really go secure LTVs rollups, things like that. The timeline for this would very much depend on the partners as well, right? Each partner would implement it differently and then they will go live differently as well. I think some of the interesting things that we're also looking into is the scaling Solana. I think there are a lot of ways that you can definitely help to scale Solana. And that's where I think the major value is, can you help to scale Solana in a way that unlocks new kinds of use cases. I think restaking is a good way. It's a good way to kind of extend that. It's like a force multiplier in that sense, for Solana, right? Hyper optimizes the way capital is being allocated. And then from there, you can take that, and also if you help with the hardware and the scaling side of things, you unlock a different dimension of what Solana can, the upper limit of what we can achieve. With not just the DApps, but also the infrastructure side as well.
Yeah. I saw something come out from Fire Dancer Dev where they were pushing like 100,000 transactions on Franken Dancer. So I don't know how much that would affect you, but I mean, once everything gets live and all that's there, like, is that going to be something that's going to change the way, like the dynamics in which you guys would be doing anything, or is that going to kind of like, will it have any effect with what you guys are doing?
I think that's good. I mean, whenever we look at Solana, the reason why Solana helped succeeded so much was better, faster, cheaper, and almost like an obsession with like helping the user and building for real users and customers, right? And if we have 100K TPS, right, or even higher, right, that's of course gonna basically take that and 10x whatever we can do, right? And I think there's some use cases that you can't really do in like, I don't know, whether in commerce, in social apps, consumer, where you do need that super fast latency. And that's where if we can reduce that latency, and take in a lot more transactions, increase the bandwidth, that would unlock, I guess, the next golden age.
Yeah. That'd be fun. And you mentioned how they were pretty focused on users, and like that was one of the reasons why I started my podcast a couple of years ago. It was like the price went down to it was like sub $10, but it was like I could still talk to any developer. I could go into a Discord if a transaction and go through and see what happened. Like I feel like there was like, even from the beginning, right? Like there was always focused on like making it a great experience for users. So it's like I came over from ETH and I was like, why would I go back? I feel like everything was like, even like when a transaction wouldn't go through, it's like I didn't have to pay anything. If a transaction doesn't go through and ETH, you're still paying the approval fees. You're still paying, which, when it was like DeFi summer, that was $50, $100, which, for a small transaction just doesn't make sense. So it really caught on early with me. And I feel like they've done a really good job at kind of like having a North Star and sticking to it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I started my journey as well back during DeFi summer, and I think one advantage, just even one thing I can name, is like you mentioned, approval. On Solana, you don't really need to do that.
Yeah.
Just make transaction.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so much easier to do. I don't, yeah. And anytime I have to open MetaMask, it's like, I just want to close it. Yeah. Sounds good. Man, That sounds good. Now, one thing that I've actually been seeing is there are kind of a lot more L2s or rollups that people are talking about on Solana. Like a dedicated execution environment. I think, what is it, like Zeta, the DeFi protocol? I think that they're launching one or may have already launched one, um, which makes sense. I mean, it's not like what Solana was built for, but for some specific use cases, I could definitely see that, or like some gaming protocols. But that's something that you guys are able to help out with as well. So are they kind of launching using your guys' infrastructure, or?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think more news definitely to come in the future. And
Yeah, yeah.
definitely stay tuned for how we're going to be doing that. Um, yeah, and I do think that we would see a lot more, I guess, what we call network extensions,
Yep.
where you are not, but you are actually just leveraging like Solana as the layer one of choice, and you're just borrowing that and creating your own execution environment. But then the main processing, everything is being still being pushed back to Solana. I think that's the main focus. We don't really need to kind of do everything on the layer two, like how you would need to do that on other chains. Um, so I do think that that is something that we'll see how it takes off and what format it does. I think we're still too early to tell.
Yeah.
And we would need to do a lot more experimentation as a whole ecosystem to see how, like, what kind of patterns emerge, because I don't think it's going to be a direct copy of what we see on EigenLayer. Yeah, that's how I see how the format's going to roll out. And whether it's a roll up or like things like on Solana, I think Magic Block is doing like an ephemeral roll up where you just do a tiny roll up, and that's a really cool crazy tag that they're doing over there. And I think that's where you would see the different kinds of like implementations pop up. And I think we barely caught like the first kick of it, right? Where people are like, oh, I can do an ephemeral roll up. I think there's like 90 other things that you can do. All I know is that we will be here to support that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
we
and it's
want to
kind of
see
fun.
these patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a fun time to be getting into it, right? Because it's kind of like you're at the forefront of like an emerging part of Solana, and so you guys get to kind of work with like the teams that are really tweaking with it, like pushing it to its boundaries, and see how you can help them. It seems fun, right? Seems like a cool space to be in.
Yeah, 100%. And it's similar to how Facebook came out of the internet when people were like, oh, what would be the next killer app? No one knew. Like literally no one knew
Yeah.
what would be the next killer app. Um, I think the same is that we don't even know what the next killer apps will be, because we haven't even, like, humanity has not even conceived of it yet.
Yeah.
I do think that this would happen, and if there was any chain that I'll put my money on this happening, it would be on Solana.
Yeah, no, I
So
would say 100%. I mean, you've seen it kind of be the focus is like, all right, let's talk about the apps. Like what apps are being built. I feel like they've done a really good job. Like most of the apps are really good. Like we haven't seen an app go absolutely crazy. I mean, I don't even want to talk about the pump fund madness that's going on right now, but I mean, it's getting a ton of use, but it's going absolutely insane. Like we don't want to talk about what's going on there right now, but I guess that's how
yeah,
it always is. That's what tests the network, right?
I woke up, I saw some stuff on Twitter, I closed my phone. Uh,
Oh,
I was like, what? But I do think it's like growing pains, right?
yeah. Yeah, they need to shut live streams
Yeah.
down. They just need to shut the live streams down. I don't want to see it. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah. um, yeah, growing pains. The internet started, it was very much permissionless at the start as well. Everyone was throwing up random sites, and then I think people were like, huh, that might not be a good idea. And then they started to kind of like close off different parts.
Yeah.
I think similarly, we will start to see different kinds of things where things break, and then we're like, oh yeah, maybe we weren't supposed to do that. And then we're just gonna roll it back. Or maybe kind of put it back into the proverbial like Pandora's box.
Yeah. 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 I mean, well, it's, one thing when they were launching all the tokens, that's good, right? I mean, an insane amount of tokens are being launched. I think like over 70,000 tokens were launched the other day and just in one day. But I mean, that's stress testing the network like crazy. I don't know who's trading all these tokens. I don't know what's going on with them, but it's pushing the network. There's an insane amount of transactions going through, and my staked soul is liking the additional yield. So we'll leave it at that, right? Sounds good. Cool. Well, I feel like that was a pretty good rundown on restaking. Anything else that you want the listeners to know about? I mean, it's Solayer. It seems pretty straightforward to use. It seems like a pretty good way to help out specific apps and help them land transactions. Like anything else you want to bring up for them?
Yeah, I think that's mostly what I guess we can cover in like a 1 hour session.
Oh,
And I guess one way I would kind of think about Solayer is that we are a restaking company, or like we are a restaking protocol or restaking layer, but we're not just that. I think we are looking to solve Solana core like infrastructure and congestion like problems and like gaps using restaking. So we do restaking as well, but we're looking to kind of really plug into the infrastructure and see how we can make this a healthier ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think restaking is that's the way I'll put it. Is that our core mission is still building something that would last and something that is genuinely useful, and would have like massive impact across the Solana ecosystem.
Yeah. And what are those areas that you guys are able to use restaking to help that congestion? Is it just helping to land transactions right now, or are there other areas that you guys are focusing on, or is that, I don't know if that's like something you don't want to talk about, but
Stay tuned.
that'll be the next episode.
Next episode.
No,
Let's
that
do it.
No, that sounds good. No, that's cool. I mean, that's using a different solution than what was being used before, and I'd love to hear it. Sounds like you guys are doing a great thing. So, really appreciate it. Let's see, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah. Find us on Twitter. Or X, I guess. You can find us on X. Solayer Labs. We have a Discord as well. A lot of like AMAs and like announcements go out there. And of course, our website and our application, that's our front end. That's where you can do your restaking from. And if you're a developer, or if you're looking to kind of build an AVS, or if you're a DApp on chain and you're looking to kind of land transactions more reliably, launch, I don't know, like your app, so like your own restaking back, I guess LST or LRT. That's something, definitely reach out to us. We can help with that. And stay tuned. We have a lot of interesting news coming over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, that's mostly it from my end. That's end of the spirit.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll stay tuned. I'll definitely join the Discord, see what you guys are up to, and keep track. And if you guys have another big launch, happy to have you back on. But yeah, really insightful. Love learning about restaking. It was a pleasure meeting you.
It's a pleasure. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Josh.
All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Solana Weekly. Once again, this is Thomas Bahamas, and I have one final ask for you guys. If you could, please subscribe on whatever player you're listening to. You could leave a review. That would be amazing. If you want to shill me your bags, work for them. But yeah, really appreciate it. And as always, this is not financial advice, but I want you guys to accelerate, move forward, and let's get this bag. I'll catch you guys next week.